So, hey guys, here's Robin Bachhoffner from Complexity Card Gaming. Today my guests are Alex,
Hey everybody.
Sasha,
Hello.
and Joshua.
Hi.
Well, we planned basically a podcast about the cross panelist tournament that we're going to host at our Grand Tour final in Colonia, but due to Konami, we're going to make the podcast about the adjustments and the forbidden and limited cards, the changements basically. Uh, yeah, so let's start with the forbidden cards. We have Performance Fire, Performance Damage Juggler, and Talon Knight Ptolemaeus. Uh, well, these changes came quite out of nowhere. How do you feel about them, Sasha?
Yeah, basically, I think it's we hadn't or we haven't had a tournament in Europe yet, so I think it could have been a little bit later. So in about 1 or 2 months, it would be justified, I think. No, it's like a little bit, yeah. It's hard for the people who paid lots of money for the paper deck. So
Yeah.
I can understand hard feelings against Konami.
So some of the reactions on Facebook and
Yeah.
other social medias. Joshua,
I think from a standpoint, it's pretty good for the actual game because I think Pepe was just way too dominant, and I didn't like the format very much. I didn't think it was a bad format, but I think Pepe mirror matches were a little weird. So I think from a game design standpoint, I think it's actually a very good move. I like that Konami seems to care about making the game better, actually, even with something like an emergency ban. I think that's cool, but of course I understand the other side. Like if you do that, then please don't make Sorcerer a secret rare. Please don't make Infinity a secret rare. And yeah, that's basically it. They shouldn't like let people buy that stuff for a lot of money and then ban it immediately, even though the ban is good, I think.
and you, Alex, your opinion?
Yeah, I still think the ban is good, but maybe a little bit too extreme. They could have left like two jokers or something different. I understand the plush fire and the damage juggler, they were the same in OCG and Mouse, but I don't know now. It really hurts for the people who invested money, like myself, for the deck.
Yeah, well, they didn't just ban the performance cards. They also limited another core part of the deck with the Lust Pendulum, the Draco Slayer, the Performer Pulse, Skullcrab Joker, and Performer Pulse Monkey Board. Well, in my opinion, Monkey Board is really special as it's now out like 2.5 weeks or almost three
Yeah.
weeks.
Mhm.
But the card is really good, right, Joshua?
I mean, I think Monkey Board is actually the hardest hit at the moment. I think the Monkey Board was the most essential card, um, but it really doesn't matter. I think like usually people are saying like new cards are not gonna get banned, but I really think there's not a big difference. Like if you wanna hit Pepe, you can hit Pepe, and it doesn't really matter if you hit the old cards or the new cards. So I don't really care that Monkey Board is only out for like 2 weeks.
Well, I don't understand the Luster Pendulum hit as well. Actually, it's a card which supports every Pendulum deck in a pretty good way. So, and I think it's not really the Luster Pendulum which is the bigger problem. Is much more like that. Ignister is the card which is broken, not the Luster Pendulum.
No, I think Luster Pendulum is fine at one. I think it's okay. He deserves to be limited, I think.
Mm.
Because he makes archetypes strong that usually should not be strong. Like you don't want to play a deck that is only good when you have Draco Slayer, and you don't want to play against a deck that is only good when it has Draco Slayer.
Okay, and maybe just another something that not that many players looked at is the errata of Pendulum Sorcerer. Basically, we now have the same text or effect as the OCG, so at the
Yeah, it's good.
point where it says you can search pendulum performapal monsters from your deck up to the monsters you destroyed, it's now cards.
Which is
But
the original effect, so
I
that's good.
think it
Yeah.
won't make that a big difference. Your opinion, Alex?
Well, I think maybe you could get rid of dead cards in your hand or spell traps or like Draco Face Off if you can't use it anymore, but you really don't have anything really good to search.
Anymore.
Yeah. It's like if you draw it, then it's only basically 2 cards, 3 cards that you're really good cards, and
Yeah.
that's it.
Well, now the big question: what to play?
It's a
Brick
good
City.
Yeah.
So I mean, the decks that most players probably thought of in the first place were like Cosmo, Monarchs, and maybe Atlantean.
Yeah.
So
I don't
basically, the
I
decks.
don't think Cosmo and Monarchs are gonna be that strong because just like the decks itself have like a pretty low ceiling, especially Monarchs is kind of weird. It bricks a lot and doesn't have that much power. I think there's going to be better decks than that. Maybe like Atlantean is something that has more powerful moves. I can see that working, especially because that deck had a lot of problems against Infinity because it was so based around that one Neptubis, and if it got negated, you had a big problem. Yeah, that's what I think.
But isn't Perform Pulse still playable in some
I think
way?
it is. I think you can definitely try it out. But as I said, I think the monkey board hit is actually the hardest. I think you can replace jokers with something like second donkey and stuff and still play, I think. But I think monkey board is really hard to replace because it was a searcher and a scale at the same time.
You have the same opinion, Sasha?
Yeah, well, I think performables were actually pretty consistent, but you've bricked a lot as well, uh, especially in the mirror match when you open and starts with an unbreakable board by Infinity and Rafflesia. So actually, you lost your opener with Infinity, and your biggest searchers. I think it's pretty hard to find something consistent, and yeah, it's much less powerful without these cards. I think it's
And
difficult. Maybe you could find a build to compete, but I don't know.
you, Alex, the other two guys
Yeah,
don't
I would.
sound that optimistic about the deck.
No, I think it's good. I think it's still playable.
Well, I didn't really try to test it today as at all. I was just looking at cards. A friend of mine tested it yesterday night, but yeah, it can still be playable. If we look at OCG, well, they have 3 monkey boards and 3 jokers. They just combined it with the Draco rulers, slayers. But I think if you find like something viable with it, you can still play it good.
It will definitely be a bigger challenge now to build the deck. That's
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I mean, I don't know if people like challenges, but from my point of view,
I do.
it's good. Yeah, it's like something good in Yu-Gi-Oh that
Yeah.
you want to build your deck.
Well, I also think
Mhm.
it's kind of weird date to release this adjustment list. Basically, it's 2 weeks before the Vices in Prague, so you don't have much time to test. As you all said, or you said that you like challenges. It's one of the hardest in basically the history of Yu-Gi-Oh. if you have a look at the time that you really have to build something new.
Challenge accepted.
I think the people that already played like decks like Cosmo or like Atlanteans or older decks will and like keep playing those same decks, they'll have a little bit more advantage.
But
Because
it still changes a lot. Like the whole hand trap dynamic is completely
yeah,
different. Like before that, decks like Atlanteans were playing like 6 to 8 hand traps, and now basically all of them suck pretty much in most matchups. So it's really weird. You really have to adjust a lot now. You don't have to like Cosmo itself, of course, is still playable the same way, but you're playing against a lot of different decks now instead of Pepe all the time.
Well, actually, there is another thing that everyone, well, almost all decks want to go second now.
yeah,
There's
Yeah,
there's
because
a,
Infinity, yeah.
yeah,
So
there's a maybe BA which is going first, but yeah.
That's
maybe.
that's actually an interesting point, as that is a point which also challenges the players of Cosmo and Monarchs and other decks, as most of them built their deck to start. I read some tournament reports of the the players that topped the YC Sydney, and most of them just said, like Joshua mentioned before, Infinity first turn
Yeah.
uh, to start, and now it completely changes. What about cards like Solemn Strike now, as most of them played these cards because they know they had to go first?
hmm
And what do you think about Solemn Strike right now?
Well, it's still a really, really good card, but if the main Pendulum deck goes away, the best card against Pendulum Summons will, of course, also get a little bit worse, I think.
Yeah,
And also, if all the decks really want to go second now, then of course less people are gonna play Strike, but it's of course still a really, really good card. And as soon as you face like a heavy back row deck, I would still expect 2 or 3 strikes in his deck.
Yep.
and you mentioned BA. What do you think right now? Because basically the deck was out of the meta game. If we look at the YC Sydney, for example, with just one BA in the tops,
yeah.
a deck that was quite dominant a long time, or basically a long time around.
Yeah, well, it obviously doesn't suck. Like the new Rhino is pretty good in it, I know, but I still think with only what is it, 2 Sir and 1 Graph?
Yep.
Yeah,
I think it's just like the resources of the deck is something that was so huge last format, but this format is just not there anymore. You have to play a lot of weird BAs now, and it's just not as consistent anymore. I mean, I never liked the deck. I think the deck doesn't have enough power, but it certainly was very consistent last format, and I don't know if it's still that consistent now.
Yeah, I think it's a really, really crucial play style you have with BA. You
Yeah.
basically stall with Dante, and yeah, most of the time you have to play floodgates. So it depends on if your opponent has an auto and floodgate and just kills you, or you win by your opponent can't activate any cards. It's like something like that,
That's
I
also a
think.
thing, though. There's like no really good floodgate you can main deck now, this format, because like
Yeah.
which floodgate is like really good against Mermail, Monarch, and Cosmo?
well, 1970 isn't that bad.
Well, it's one of, but like nothing really you can like plan on
Count on.
doing consistently.
Yeah.
Like last format, one of the big advantages was you could main deck cards like Mind Crush or Mistake, which were really good back rows against pretty much everything. And I think that's something you don't really have this format.
Well, isn't Mistake a pretty good card,
Mm,
actually?
Not against most decks. Like
Well, it's like
It's,
Atlanteans that you can get over it really fast.
yeah, okay, that's right. Yeah,
and it also
yeah,
doesn't
yeah,
always fuck up Cosmo. Like most of the time, it actually doesn't really.
Yeah.
It's only Farm Girl, I think. Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, and Cosmo Town if it
Mm,
gets destroyed.
yeah.
Oh yeah, sure. But like that's not a big deal. You don't play. You would not cite Mistake against Cosmo even.
Yeah.
Well, any other decks that we didn't discuss yet, where you think they could have potential?
Yeah. I think magicians are not very good. That's something that some people mentioned. But I think magicians are still worse pendulum scales than simply still playing performapiles,
Yeah.
basically. What else is there? I don't know.
Maybe some
Satella.
Turbo Minerva.
Satella.
Just back
Satella.
row deck as usual.
Yeah.
Here we go, giant cards.
Yeah, maybe someone who owns Minervas could play some Turbo kind of light ones.
Yeah, but no damage jugglers anymore to mill.
Yeah.
What is he gonna
Yeah.
mill?
Yeah,
Well,
Well, that's also a point. Omega got a lot weaker now.
Yeah.
Basically, one of the
Yeah.
best generic level 8 synchros, as you don't have the option damage juggler.
Fuck.
And
Yeah.
Omega gets me to the point, to deck I would like to mention. I know you're gonna hate it, but Infernoid.
Ah,
right. Yeah.
Well, I think the problem is you have just.
so we're in the side event section now.
I think the main problem with Infernoid is you don't have
It sucks.
any. No. uh, you just have a really bad Cosmo matchup, and that sucks
And
because
Sucks.
you
I would expect a lot of Cosmos.
Yeah.
think that yeah. I'm also curious about Prague. I think it's too early to make like to have
Predictions.
predictions, which deck are the most presented and everything like that. But still, I think we all agree that Cosmo, Monarchs, and Mermail could be like the three biggest decks for the wisest Prague.
They're like the obvious choices, but as you
Yeah.
said, it's a very, very special situation we don't know, and it's a very big challenge to every player to maybe find something that is like the thing with Cosmo and Monarchs is that the decks are powerful, but they are not that hard to beat because they do the same thing pretty much every game. So if you just find a deck that's good against them, you can just easily beat them.
But isn't it like this? If you have to find something to beat a deck, it's normally better.
No, it's the other way around, usually.
But I mean, you have to adapt your deck to beat.
No, I'm just saying you have to find a deck that beats them naturally.
Okay. Okay, I see the point.
But there's gonna be a challenge tour stop on 14th of February.
In
And
Ljubljana.
Yeah, and they're gonna have. I think they're going to use the adjusted list, so we can see what's gonna be there
Unfortunately,
as well.
YCS is not going to use it in USA, so we won't have any information really from big tournaments for Prague. So I think Prague has actually gotten a lot more
Well, like Alex said, I
for me
think
at
the
least.
challenge tour stop in Ljubljana could be, or could
Something
show
to look
already
up
some
to.
decks.
Yeah, of course, little information, but no really major tournament before Prague.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Any last words?
Rip Pepe.
Okay, and with that, we're going to finish the podcast of today. And thank you very much, Alex,
Thank you.
Sasha,
Thanks.
and Joshua.
Yeah.
If you have any comments, just leave it in the section below the video. Subscribe our YouTube channel, like our Facebook page, visit our normal web page. We also have Twitch, where we're going to start streaming from
Yes.
next week on, right?
Yep, next week.
And yeah, that's it. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.